The sun climbed over the limestone walls, turning the dust of the road into a golden haze. Hundreds of families converged on the city gates, their voices rising in a rhythmic hum of anticipation. Inside, the marketplace was a storm of motion. Merchants barked prices, carts rattled over uneven cobbles, and the smell of roasting grain filled the air. Mary kept her hand firm on the fingers of her son, pulling him through the dense press of travelers. Every step forward brought more noise, more life, more chaos. Then, the rhythm broke. Jesus stopped. He did not look at the traders or the overflowing stalls. He turned his head toward a cluster of stone steps where a group of elders sat in a tight circle. They were bent over weathered scrolls, their fingers tracing lines of ink as they argued in low, measured tones. Jesus let go of the hand he was holding. He took a single step toward them, his feet moving silently across the stone. He did not blink. He watched the way the elders pointed to the parchment, his posture shifting from restless traveler to absolute stillness. Around him, the city surged and collided, but his focus had already left the marketplace, pulled entirely into the words etched upon the scrolls. The sun began to dip, leading long, bruised shadows across the road. The heat of the day evaporated, replaced by a sudden, cooling wind. Joseph hauled the pack onto his shoulder, the leather straps creaking against his weight. He signaled the others, pointing toward the horizon where the path to Nazareth stretched thin and quiet. Mary turned, her hand outstretched, to guide her son into the line. She reached, but her fingers met only empty air. She stepped back, scanning the faces of the families moving past. She shifted her eyes to the next group, then the next, her pace slowing until she came to a complete stop in the middle of the road. The laughter she had heard moments before sounded distant now, muffled by the rising pressure in her chest. She turned to Joseph, her breath catching in her throat. Her face had lost all color. Joseph dropped the pack, the heavy fabric hitting the dirt with a thud. He scanned the trail, his head snapping from left to right, his hands trembling as he gripped the air. He shook his head once, twice, but the empty road offered no answers. The peace of the journey vanished, replaced by a sudden, jagged desperation as the reality settled in. They did not speak. They turned back, abandoning their supplies in the dirt, and sprinted toward the city gates. The guards did not stop them. The intensity of their movement cleared the path. Inside, the marketplace had transformed. The vibrant stalls were now skeletal shadows, the ground littered with debris. They wove through the narrow, winding alleys, their boots striking the stone with frantic, uneven rhythm. Mary called his name, her voice cracking against the damp walls. Joseph followed, his chest heaving, his eyes scanning every dark corner for a sign of movement. The temperature plummeted. A sharp, biting wind whipped through the corridors, stinging their faces and carrying the scent of cold stone. They turned a sharp corner and stopped. The alley opened into a wide, desolate square. Ahead, the temple stood, its massive stone pillars rising like dark fingers against the starless sky. The air here was deathly still. They approached the heavy wooden doors, their hands shaking as they reached for the iron rings. Every second of silence felt heavier than the last. They pushed. The wood groaned, yielding just enough to reveal the thin, flickering light of the interior. The heavy doors swung inward, revealing a sanctuary bathed in the soft, amber glow of oil lamps. The frantic pace of the streets vanished, replaced by a profound, heavy silence. In the center of the hall, a circle of scholars sat upon the stone floor, their scrolls unrolled like maps of ancient thought. Jesus sat amongst them, his back straight, his gaze fixed on the parchment before him. He was entirely still, a stark anchor in the room. One teacher leaned forward, his brow deeply furrowed, searching for a flaw in the logic. Jesus raised a hand, pointing to a specific passage, his voice steady and clear as it resonated against the high vaulted ceiling. He spoke of law and meaning, his rhythm measured and precise. The elder's hand paused in midair. He looked at the scroll, then back at the youth, the tension in his face dissolving into a look of genuine wonder. Beside him, another scholar nodded slowly, his eyes widening as the depth of the explanation took hold. The air in the chamber shifted. The scholars were no longer debating, they were listening, their confusion replaced by the quiet, sharp realization that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Mary and Joseph stood in the doorway, their breathing slowing as the weight of the moment settled. Jesus rose, gave a final, respectful nod to the gathered teachers, and stepped toward his parents. The journey back to Nazareth was quiet, the road stretching long and dusty under the midday sun. The frantic energy of the search had dissolved into a deep, reflective stillness. True. Back in his daily life, the rhythm of chores remained, but the focus behind his eyes had sharpened. He spent hours with the scrolls, questioning the elders, and observing the world with a new, piercing intent. His words carried a gravity that made people pause and listen. Wisdom is not a destination. It is a path forged through curiosity and the courage to ask difficult questions. Like him, you can open a book, challenge your own certainty, and seek the truth in every action. Today, you take that first step. Learn, grow, and sharpen your own intent. The world opens to those who seek to understand it. Your journey into wisdom begins now.